the assumption made by some is that I only wanted to marry a younger woman, which is not true. I was very open-minded in the 7 years I spent dating throughout the Philippines and Vietnam. And what I wanted to share with you today, a few of the experiences I had dating an older woman, and each of these was over 46, and all the way up to 49. In hopes that you can just kind of get a picture of how this can go. Because there's so much emphasis on coming to the Philippines, finding a young wife, and that's really not the best option for every man that comes to the Philippines looking to remarry. It really is not. There are challenges, and I've talked about them in another video, when you decide to be in a committed relationship or marriage with a younger woman. There are certain challenges and expectations on you. I'll put a link to that in the comments section. I won't review all that here. But suffice it to say that if you're going to be with a younger woman, do not think it's going to be just rainbows and unicorns. There are challenges, and it's going to require a lot of patience on your part. Now, getting back to dating and being in a relationship with an older woman, I have to say that with one exception, it's always been a pleasant experience. The first one that comes to mind, we just happened to meet because we knew a lot of the same people. And she was 49, Filipina, and kind of a funny thing, I kept asking her age, and we stayed good friends. And for 3 years, even afterwards, she was still 49. So we got along very well, excellently. We would, for instance, take a walk along the beach. We'd go to a restaurant and just have some wine out on the balcony and talk about everything from world global political matters to the local chismes and gossip in town, and just a very relaxed, mature experience. It was great. I mean, I enjoyed being around her just for the sake of being around her. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, then why didn't you stay with her? Why didn't you make a commitment and get married? Well, the both of us talked about it. She definitely wanted to get married. I was very open to it, but again, I always give it a year. And in that year, spending a lot of time together, going on dates, and it wasn't even like we called it dating. We felt so comfortable with each other. It was just, hey, what are you doing today? Well, nothing much. You want to go to the beach? Okay, yeah. And then we'd take a picnic to the beach, and maybe her daughter would come along, or, and we'd have a great time. Now, the reason we didn't end up staying together had to do, and this is a very important issue for you to consider, so maybe this is what you'll take away from this, is that she had 2 children. One was a daughter who was already in college. Wonderful person, had a boyfriend, great person to talk with and all that. So it's not like she needed me to help her raise her 24-year-old daughter. That was not an issue. However, she did happen to have a younger son who was about 10, 11 years old. Now, this is where the rub came in, is her and I did not agree on a very important issue, which is the need for children to be disciplined. Now, those of you who are good, responsible parents know the difference between good, responsible discipline, which builds character and responsibility and self-control in a child so that they become a good, responsible, logical thinking, behaved adult. That is a different thing from what most people think of right away, which is child abuse, where you're just venting your anger and causing unnecessary damage. Don't ever let anybody tell you that proper discipline is child abuse. That's just foolish. So her and I, when it came to her son, completely were on the opposite end of the spectrum. I raised 3 sons, a daughter and a niece from Mexico at the time, and I was fair, but I was making it my goal that they would grow up to be responsible people. And part of that included discipline to discourage their bad behaviors and bad mindsets. Well, she saw it the other way and was more into rewarding him for good behavior and just sort of glossing over the bad behavior. And I simply saw that as rewarding bad behavior. So on that one item alone, it was the only reason that her and I did not stay together. So if you get involved with an older woman who has kids that still need a father, take into consideration the issue of, is she going to allow you to discipline her children? Because if she will not give you that authority, if she's going to override you at every point, you're going to have nothing but problems. Now, I'll only briefly mention this other woman who was also about 48, and I just happened to meet her on the bus. I was riding the bus from Cebu to Dumaguete, and she sat next to me, and it's about a 5-hour bus ride. And we got to talking and exchanged contact info. It turned out she lived in Cebu, but every weekend would go on Friday to visit her daughter and then would ride the bus back Sunday evening. So since I was living in Dumaguete at the time, we just started at first hanging out. And then she made it very clear to me that she wanted an intimate relationship, but she didn't want to be taken out dating and such. She didn't want to go to the movies. She didn't want to go to a restaurant. She didn't even really want a boyfriend. She basically said, well, when I come to see my daughter, I'll see her for about an hour or two, and then I'll just come over to your place and stay the weekend and then go back to Cebu. So that kind of a relationship with an older woman was more physical. We never entertained the idea of staying together or being a couple or getting married. And I asked her, well, why can't we? I don't mind taking you out for dinner. Well, being an older woman, she was very self-conscious about her public image. She knew a lot of people in Dumaguete through her daughter and such. And she didn't really want people seeing her as somebody who was out dating. She was worried about the gossip that would entail. And I was like, okay, fine. And so we did that for about a couple of months. And then she eventually met another boyfriend in Cebu, and that was the end of that. Now, the third is a woman also, said she was 49, there in Vietnam. Some of you may be familiar with her. She was in many of my videos. In fact, there's an entire series of videos of us together. She was a big part of my experience in Vietnam for several months. And the way we met was that my apartment was right next door to her sister's restaurant. And I had passed by the restaurant many times. It was like a hot pot barbecue where you ate out on the street, tables and such. And I had eaten there before and decided to do a video to promote the business. It's something that I do every now and then. If I really like a restaurant, I'll do a video and share it on my channel and hopefully, drum up some more business for them. So I did that. And in the process, I met the owners, well, I guess it was the husband and wife, and the husband came to my table and he said, well, lunch is on us. Thank you for doing the video. Let me ask you, are you single? And I said, yeah. So then next thing I knew, because he had my text number, he said, well, can you come downstairs? I'd like you to meet my sister-in-law. So his wife's sister. And that's how we met. So we dated, and as I have always consistently said, everything can be great the first 3 months, but majority of the time, a new relationship will not last beyond 3 months, 85% of the time. That's just my rough estimation based on experience. Sometimes it doesn't even last the first 6 weeks. So her and I lasted about 2.5, almost 3 months. And in that time, we went from the honeymoon stage, everybody on their best behavior, to doing a long road trip. We went from one end of Vietnam to the other, east to west, actually west to east, and back again, in a small car, stopping at many places for about 10 days. And if you really want to get to know somebody, go on a road trip with them. Even better, go on a badly planned road trip. Now, we had a great time, but there were times where we were in the middle of nowhere, and I asked her, I said, well, if we get a flat out here in the middle of nowhere, you do have a spare, right? She's like, I don't know. I've never checked. That's kind of what I was dealing with. And we got to another place, which was literally in the middle of just rice fields forever, as far as the eye could see. And she was spearheading the arrangements. It was all her idea. She was going to go anyway. She simply asked if I wanted to come along. And I figured it would be a great video experience, which it was. But then I came to find that we got to this one location, literally in the middle of nowhere, nothing but rice fields as far as the eye can see. And I said, well, it's getting kind of late. It's about 7 p.m. We ought to, get to our hotel. And she says, oh, there is no hotel. And we were visiting a priest at a church, which was very small, again, in the middle of nowhere. And I said, well, okay, so then where are we going to sleep? And she pointed at the altar, which was tile, hard tile, glossy tile. She pointed at the altar. It was a Catholic church. And she said, well, I guess you could sleep there or maybe sleep on the church benches. So I gave it a good shot. But to summarize, she was not that great at planning things out. And she was not very receptive or cooperative to letting me plan things out in a much better logical way. So we constantly were butting heads. Now, she was 49, never had kids, never had been married, owned 2 restaurants and her own house, 2-story house and a car. The thing that sticks out is the restaurants, because everybody did what she said in those restaurants. She's the boss. She's the owner. So if she says, do this, do that, she expects people to do it. Well, then she ran into me, and I don't operate that way. So we constantly were bumping heads. She wanted to be in charge, wasn't very good at it, and I was not about to let her be in charge. So, I amicably ended it. I still went to the restaurant once in a while that her sister-in-law, there was 3 restaurants involved, her sister's restaurant, and then she had 2 other restaurants. There was no bad feelings or anything. In fact, the family contacted me about, it must have been 14 months later, and she had passed away from cancer. This was like a year after we had already broken up. So, again, that situation should not tell you that all older women want to be in control. You've heard me say so many times, there is no all. Some women, that could be an issue. Some women, like I mentioned with the first one, may not want you to be part of the disciplinary authority in the home. And then other women, they just want you for the passion, and that's it. They don't want to be taken to dinner. They don't want to be gallivanting around town with you. They don't want long conversations. They just want to show up on Friday, have a honeymoon till Sunday night, and then leave. And they have no expectations. So the variety of experiences you may have with an older woman, expect that. They are not all the same. They do not all want the same thing. Many just don't even want marriage. They just want a regular man in their life to be their dance partner or to have a shower with once in a while. So, love to hear some of your experiences dating older women in Southeast Asia, and hopefully it'll give you a wider spectrum on what is available and what you may encounter when dating an older woman in Southeast Asia.